Coming up next is Business Rebound Part 2, 3 Ways to Improve Resilience by the Municipal Insurance Association of BC. We'll hear from Tom Barnes, the CEO of MIABC, Megan Chorlton, Director of Member Services and General Counsel for MIABC, Sandra Mayo, Risk Control Specialist of MIABC, with presentations and case studies interspersed by Jim Martin, Chief Administrative Officer of the Regional District of Fraser, Fort George, and Meredith Starkey, the CAO of the Village of Zeballos.
Hello, I'm Tom Barnes, the CEO of the Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia. And today I'm here to talk about community resilience with you. And with me is our Director of Member Services, Megan Chorlton, and also Sandra Mayo, our Risk Control Specialist. And what we're going to talk about is building resilience in your community. So when we start a conversation like this, we first got to agree on what we're talking about. What is resilience? And to me, resilience is that inner strength someone has to bounce back from adversity or something going wrong. It really comes from the person's heart. From an organizational point of view, that inner strength is founded on your culture. The British guidance for organizational resilience standards defines it as the ability of an organization to anticipate, prepare for, and respond and adapt to incremental change and sudden disruptions in order to survive and prosper. And those are the elements that we want to focus on. Anticipate, prepare, respond, adapt. All those things require planning. Not detailed disaster planning that is going to game out every possible scenario, but a basic strategic planning. Strategic planning leads and reflects an organization's culture. When the dislocation of the pandemic hit the MIABC, we had to rely on our culture of excellence and professionalism, as illustrated in our strategic plan. You'll see that the plan was prepared in July of 2019, anticipating different challenges than what actually appeared. However, we could turn to that and look to what our goals were, what our objectives were, and what we viewed our strengths to be. Some of our goals were to make services available to all local governments in British Columbia, not just our members. To turn to our strengths, our partners, our staff, our members, and the experts that we deal with as business partners every day. And to identify opportunities to serve all governments in British Columbia. The first basic lesson we learned from this was to view challenges as opportunities. That's one of our key ways of turning those challenges into a resilient community. What we had just done before the first shutdown hit and our whole operation went remote was we'd introduced a new program that we call Ask Us Anything. That encourages our members to email us or telephone us with any question they have about any subject. We're able to take those questions and turn them over to experts, partners, people within our membership who are able to answer those questions and provide the advice to our members. And we know that if one of our members has an issue, it's probably going to be an issue that is presented to a number of our other members. And we were able to take all those resources when we got those questions and produce webinars and think tanks that our members could subscribe to and download and view at their leisure and find out the answers to the questions that they needed right away. And we went from producing 1 or 2 webinars a month with a few dozen people subscribing to 2 or 3 a week with what turned into hundreds of people from all levels of government, all local governments, and even all parts of Western Canada and even Ontario tuning in to watch. The Many of our members demonstrated a similar approach to the pandemic, seeing the situation present opportunities in which their communities could further grow, thrive, and adapt. Chief Administrative Officer Jim Martin is here to share how the Regional District of Fraser Fort George saw opportunities emerge out of what seemed like dire circumstances.
Hi, I'm happy to share a little bit about the Regional District of Fraser Fort George and how we found opportunity within the pandemic on our business operations, and I think things that will are becoming a new practice and will be with us for a long time. And I'm sure these aren't unlike what others have experienced, but in our particular case, I thought there's about three things I would like to highlight. And the first one is remote working, and as an organization, we kind of talked a little bit about remote working, but didn't really understand the importance of it or, the technology behind it. But luckily, our IT people were on top of things and had a good understanding of it and had been using some of this themselves. So when the pandemic hit and we had to get people home or out of the office, either because of health issues or because they were key people looking after high-risk people, our IT department was pretty quick at launching remote work technology. And we went through a phase of learning about this. And I think it's really opened up a lot of new business practices for us. We're able to meet with community members without having to go into communities now and have broader meetings with others across the province and save some time there. And I think the remote working as well has led to different ways for us to participate with our community members and with each other and with our colleagues also. And I think the one of the big pieces as well from the remote working is it caused a lot of us to start thinking about different ways of managing our people. And in a lot of cases, when we can have face-to-face discussions with individuals and we see them, it provides confidence that they're working and being productive. And that shift for us was about really managing for performance as well. And I think for a lot of our younger, newer supervisors and managers, it created that opportunity for us to partake in some training to manage for performance, not just the fact that you can see somebody working. And again, that's going to be a long-standing element for us. I think being a more productive environment, and especially for the younger generations coming in that want to have more autonomy, I think managing performance is really what they're looking for. The other piece is business continuity planning. We talked a lot about business continuity planning. It was really a side of the desk thing. We had some idea what the benefits were, but never really had time to get to it. And of course, the pandemic forced us to move towards very quickly investigating and developing a business continuity plan for our organization. And it caused people to think about all kinds of different elements, not just the pandemic, and how we maintain and keep operations going. And it brought teams together as well, or different business units together, but where they hadn't been necessarily had touch points to share information and develop business continuity plans for the organization. And I think we're going to be much stronger and a much better place for any kind of event that comes at us in the future. The last piece is about health and wellness. And I think the real interesting element here is we've always had some pretty good health and wellness initiatives here at the Regional District. But this really highlighted the importance throughout the summer months and as we moved into the fall about health and wellness and paying attention to things like physical health, mental health, and making sure people were looked after. We have a program we've participated in for the last number of years that starts in the spring, and it helps people increase their physical activity, helps them increase their mental health awareness and diet and their connection to others. And that program was oversubscribed this year, and we've seen in the metrics at the end of it that not only was the uptake larger, but the results, people were paying attention much more as they move forward. And I think the biggest outcome in that is that it really opened up the discussion around mental health. And I think those are one of the things in the past that we've kind of avoided because we can't necessarily see that somebody's hurt. And this really caused us to pay attention and really check in with each other and opened up discussions. I think people have become much more open to discussing some of the mental health issues they may be feeling, whether they're stressed or feeling lots of different pressure. And then likewise, supervisors and managers responding in kindness. So again, you know, the pandemic continues to flummox us in different ways. It will continue to create some operating challenges as we move forward, and not like you know, any of our local government partners here. We will continue to try to rise to the challenges, but I think we're going to be better coming out of this when the pandemic ever ends.
Some of our smallest and most remote members, like Zeballos, also saw these challenges as an opportunity to address long-standing concerns in their communities. Meredith Starkey, the CAO of Zeballos, is here to share her experience.
In Zeballos, resiliency is a significant concern and one that we've devoted much time to. With just over 100 permanent residents, Zeballos is a micro-municipality, but we still provide the same range of services and asset management as a larger municipality. We just do it with a team of 4 people, one of whom is part-time. On top of this, we live in a remote location where external support is not always readily available. This places an extra burden on us to always be on call for emergencies and means that if any one person is out of commission, the results can be catastrophic. We are undeniably vulnerable, but are working toward resiliency with a 3-pronged approach. The first is relationships. Building and maintaining respectful, supportive relationships with our neighboring First Nations, municipalities, and regional district. In some cases, we have codified these relationships through service agreements, but less formal mutual aid agreements are more common. In short, when we need help, we don't hesitate to ask our neighbors, and we are prepared to reciprocate when they ask us. The second is redundancy. Everyone is essential, but no one is irreplaceable. It sounds terrible, but it's essential to how we can operate. We have worked to cross-train staff on essential tasks as much as is feasible. So for example, everyone on staff can take and deliver water samples, can activate the tsunami siren, and can turn on the generator when the power goes out. Additionally, we have brought in water and sewer operators from our neighboring community of Tassis to tour our systems so that if we need to call on them for support during a catastrophic failure, we can do that. The last is record keeping. And this is perhaps the least exciting part for most people, but this is essential. Part of no one being irreplaceable requires that we take excellent notes and file them appropriately so that others can know what we know. And it means remembering to CC each other on projects that we are all involved in or that someone else may need to step in on. So when I go on vacation, others on staff can carry forward a project if something happens. And so that is how we are trying to manage the challenges faced by tiny municipalities during COVID and beyond. Thank you.
And now Sandra Mayo is going to take you through the second critical ingredient to building community resilience.
Thanks, Tom. Resilience means different things to different people. It's been defined as a capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. A good way to build resilience is through business continuity planning, and using that as a tool to help build your resiliency can then help you be prepared for the unexpected. But what is business continuity planning? There's many definitions of what it may look like. I like this one. It's a process of developing prior arrangements and procedures to enable an organization to respond to an event in such a manner that critical business functions can continue within planned levels of disruption. But let's just break that down a bit, and what does that actually mean? Developing prior arrangements. So thinking in advance, already looking at what some alternate ways of working or providing that service may look like. So forward planning, And then how do you respond to an event? What is that event? What risk management analysis have you done about what a disruption may look like and how it could affect you? Critical business functions. So what are they for you? So being able to look at what will impact your critical business functions and whatever they are, and then continue within planned levels of disruption. So what does that look like? It's not business as usual, but it's a continuation to a certain level for that, whatever those critical business functions are. So that's kind of how that definition would play into how you would consider business continuity planning. But the process can be quite daunting. So if you haven't looked at business continuity planning, it's something to consider, but it's a large and overwhelming prospect. For many local governments, business continuity planning currently is not a priority. And as we know, there are many competing priorities. But even when it's not on the radar, how do you ensure that there is enough time to make sure that that project and the plan is put together? And then how does business continuity stack up against other projects? I think what we've learned from COVID-19 is that for those who did not have plans in place, you had to produce those plans quickly and informally. And I think we can all remember the stress that came with that, the huge decisions that had to be made with limited information or rapidly changing information. But when you're organized and you have organizational commitment around business continuity, it ensures that as a project isn't put aside. But maybe it takes longer when you have competing priorities. But how do you get there? What do you do? The first key step is to identify business continuity as a priority. Allow for sufficient resources to ensure that you are successful. And then set a timeline that's realistic. This isn't your aspirational timeline of 6 months. It has to be realistic, and don't set yourself up for failure there. And despite how long it might take you to get there, check in on your progress as you go through your planning of business continuity. There are some other resources and options that you can think of. The MIABC has a business continuity hub. You can find that on our website. It's accessible to all of our members. And it provides a high-level overview of the business continuity process, as well as some links to external resources that you can access. It's also important that you consider your other local government colleagues and leverage those relationships that you have. We are, as much as you're somewhat unique, you also have a lot of similarities. And connecting with your colleagues, finding out where they're at, what resources they have, what decisions they've made, will help you along your process towards business continuity, or even reviewing and updating the plans that you already have in place. We also have at the MIABC a loss control program. One of the options that you may want to consider is using the program specifically around training. So if you have a particular area within business continuity, or you'd like an overview of business continuity, we can offer that to you through the loss control program. That's another option to consider. And last but not least, lessons learned from COVID-19. Pandemic planning is part of business continuity, and it's important that we learn from all those stressful, difficult decisions that you had to make, and also the analysis that you made along the way. And build that into your existing plan or future plans as it relates to business continuity. Now I'm going to pass you over to Megan.
Thanks, Sandra. So in terms of the 3 ways that we recommend that you can build resiliency in your communities, the first one, seeing those challenges as opportunities instead of simply risks. The second being, Sandra's really interesting discussion on being prepared for the unexpected. And building those business continuity plans, so important, and we've seen the importance of that over the past year. And then our third recommendation really flows from some of the comments Sandra made in that last slide, which is engage the support of others and work together. And that is something that we are very familiar with in British Columbia in the local government community, that the local governments have so much power in coming together to achieve things that they can't achieve on their own. There's great institutional examples of that, the UBCM, the Municipal Finance Authority, and the Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia itself. Those are key examples of instances where our members or local governments have come together to advocate on behalf of local governments, to secure financial options and to secure insurance options that they couldn't negotiate on their own. But we saw a number of examples in the past year of our members coming together to be able to do things that they couldn't do on their own, and I want to share those with you. The first example happened sort of earlier on in the pandemic, when the province had mandated a number of requirements for local governments in the spring, and one of which was for every local government to enter into mutual aid agreements with their fellow local governments to support the pandemic response. Now, at that time, we received a number of calls from members. How are we drafting this? Is there a template? We're dealing with so many things at the same time, and now we have to draft this mutual aid agreement. The MIABC members need to provide their mutual aid agreements to us to approve to ensure the proper insurance coverage is in place. And so through some of our member advisory group discussions with members, they advised us of this issue. And so we came together, we took a template that they had received from the province. We retained our casual legal advice service provider, Lidstone and Company, to draft a thorough mutual aid agreement for use by all local governments in British Columbia to meet this mandatory requirement. So it's a great example of the local governments in British Columbia using the MIABC to accomplish a mandatory requirement during a very stressful time by coming together and doing it together. A second example that we've seen really relates to the casual legal advice program itself. So for those of you that are not familiar with this program, this is a program that the MIABC offers to its members where they can subscribe for a nominal fee. It's between $250 and $750 a year. And then they can get they can get 30 minutes of legal advice on an unlimited number of issues. So it's really for, you've got an issue, council needs to make a decision, and you want to run an issue by a lawyer to make sure there's no legal implications that you might be missing. We get questions from our members all the time, and we're always on the lookout for questions that might be common questions that other members might have as well. And when the casual legal advice program answers those questions, if it's something that would be a benefit to all of our members, we'll ask them to create a public post for our risk and insurance blog. The one that we have up here as an example is erection of temporary tent structures. So one of our members wanted to help out businesses in the local community by allowing them or permitting them to erect temporary tent structures adjacent to their businesses to expand the square footage of their business so that they could continue to operate safely, serve as many customers as possible, but in a way that was safe considering the current pandemic restrictions. So that we got legal advice on that from Lidstone and Company, published it on our blog, and it's a way of our members collaborating through that program to get collective legal advice on an important issue. And then the third example was one that we faced sort of in the late spring, early summer. And this was when the initial restrictions after phase one were starting to lift. And a lot of our members were very, very concerned about the possibility of transmission claims arising when they reopen their facilities, and in particular, their recreational facilities. So we worked with the BCRPA and our members to kind of come up with some guidelines so that they could comfortably reopen their recreational facilities and be comfortable with the amount of risk they were taking. One of the things we did was we hired external counsel to draft a series of waivers and permission forms so that members could distribute those and that people would be aware that they were that the liability for transmission claims would be limited when they use the facilities. The second thing that we did was we worked with the BCRPA to get in front of the province a statutory immunity for transmission claims so that our members could offer services to their communities and not worry about being sued because someone contracted COVID while they were using their recreational facilities. And then third, as Tom mentioned earlier, we had a series of webinars where our members could come, and we opened it up to local governments across British Columbia, where they could come and ask questions of a panel of experts to get some advice on reopening their facilities. So those are three examples of ways that local governments have really come together to share information, to support each other, and to work together to solve some of the problems that have arisen in the past year during the pandemic response. Now, we did launch this Ask Us Anything service. It's really just an evolution of our telephone and email advice service. And while we won't have a question period today following this session, we invite you to contact us at any time to ask us any questions about issues that have arisen during this particular presentation, or any questions that you might have that we might be able to assist. Thank you so much.